This is the Fantasy Football Unlimited podcast with your host, Kevin Murray.
Welcome to the Fantasy Football Unlimited podcast. On this episode, we have a guest that, according to the great Tommy Moe, has been a man of mystery over the past 5 years in the fantasy industry as someone behind the scenes. But more recently, he's been stepping into the spotlight with top 25 Fantasy Pros finishes and his work with Fantasy Cares and the Scott Fish Bowl. Our guest, according to Tommy, is a leader, a family man, and an innovator. It's none other than Chalk from the Undroppables. Welcome to the podcast, my friend.
Hey, thanks, Doc. Thanks for having me on. I know we go way back, and always appreciate our conversations and your support over the years. And it's good to just be hanging out and talking again.
Sounds good. No, I love what you do. I've always admired your approach to this whole fantasy content creation game, and it's an honor to have you on. So I'm happy to have you. Now you're a California guy, right? Yeah.
Born and raised in California, Southern California. So shout out to all my fellow SoCal peeps out there. Been out here since the beginning.
Nice. And so where did your passion for sports come from? Like where did that all begin for you?
Yeah, so a lot of it was just hanging out with my dad, right? So a lot of it was going. We lived down the freeway from Angel Stadium. So growing up, watching the Angels play, Chuck Finley, Wally Joyner, Dave Winfield, like those days, right? Chili Davis. And if you're a hardcore baseball head, you're nodding your head like I see you are, Doc.
Yeah.
And and then Lakers, right? So like the 80s, right? So I'm really shouting out 1980s Southern California sports. Rams, my dad wasn't really a Rams guy. He wasn't a football guy. So we didn't watch too much football, but a lot of it was playing catch outside and watching Showtime.
So are the Rams your football team?
No. So didn't grow up liking the Rams.
Okay.
Again, didn't really watch football, so I wasn't a football fan growing up. Didn't really care for the sport. And by the time I got interested, the Rams had already left.
Yeah.
So one of my former bosses, Lee Steinberg, his efforts to save the Rams, finally, didn't prevail, and they ended up relocating to St. Louis.
So do you have a favorite football team?
I do. So super random, and it's a random team. When people ask me what my favorite team is, knowing where I'm from or people that like my friends, it's actually the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Nice.
Been a fan of the Bucs since like '99.
Really?
Really just an odd time. Like 98, 99 is when I started getting into football, and I only got into football playing Madden. It's really weird, right? So I got into football playing Madden.
Nice.
So I was just playing video games. Really, like I didn't really care for football. I just knew how to play the game, like the video game, and I knew how to exploit. Yeah.
Was it like Warwick Dunn and Mike Allstott? Is that what
exactly?
The new uniforms? Did that?
It was a little bit, but it was Warwick Dunn and Allstott and the defense, right? So it was just. I mean, when you think about Madden, right? Like especially when you're learning how to play, right? You're not trying to throw like. Throwing deep bombs is hard because like you usually get picked off by like your friend, right? Until you figure out like the mechanics and stuff. So for me, a lot of it was just grinding out the clock, right, and like trying to run the ball, and then playing really good defense, right? Like what is it, like user pick or whatever? I forgot what it was. It's been a long time, but basically, just trying to play good defense. So I had Rondé Barber and like Derek Brooks and. Yeah, get the sacks, the strips,
Yeah, no, I can see why that would be appealing. I mean, I like the diversity in the backfield, right? You got the pounder and you got the lightning Warwick Dunn. Dunn, all-time guy. He's a player. Both those players are guys that like underappreciated over time. Like phenomenal running backs. And
then you had Keyshawn, right? Like so you had like the Proto X.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So then you got like the guy on the outside, right? So you can do like the curl in, like you can kind of play that, right? Like the slant, right? The curl, the fade,
nice,
right? The post, right? So, yeah.
So that's stuck all the way till this day. The Tampa Bay Bucs are your squad.
It's stuck, and then I had a good Super Bowl run, kind of, early on, I guess, in my fanhood, like within I think the first
Yeah.
5 years or so, right? Like
Yeah.
first 3 years. So we had a championship then, in 2002, and then just stuck, right? And then to the bad years, to the bad jerseys, to the ugly calculator numbers, to the giant logo on the helmets, through it all. So
I love it. I love it. So as a sports fan, what's the biggest loss that you've experienced? All sports.
biggest loss?
Yeah.
Kobe.
Yeah. 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 I
Kobe.
mean, literally, like that's
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. But the other biggest loss, like in a game, I would say it was probably the Lakers, Kobe losing to the Celtics.
Yeah, that's a
The first
definitely a
time, right?
popular one as a Lakers fan. Yeah.
Right? Yeah, he got his revenge. You know, like Lakers losing, the Showtime and Magic and that falling apart to Jordan and the Bulls and seeing that, like, those are tough years, but I think as like a hardcore fan, I think that was, as a sports fan, that was probably the hardest one.
Yeah.
The
No.
Bucks were so bad. The Bucks were bad for so long, right? The
Yeah.
hardest ball loss I've had would probably be like the Bucks losing to the Rams. Like Brady losing to the Rams, and then the Rams winning it all, right? So
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
that short, not dynasty, like what could have been a dynasty, and ended real quick right there.
Yeah, it was fun ride though. It was fun to see Brady
Yeah,
back.
fun ride.
I saw a clip I think yesterday of Kobe doing an interview, and I thought to myself, man, like I wish that guy was still around because I mean he's just like listening to him speak is just like you just want more and more. So tragic loss. I can definitely see why that would definitely stand out to you. What as an all time favorite sports moment? What do you got?
Man, you got some good questions. All time, and you sent this over. I just like I didn't really like prepare an answer. I was like, oh,
That's
I
okay.
could just kind of speak from the heart. All time sports moment. I think it was like that Bucks first championship was like, because I think getting spoiled as Lakers fans, like, oh well, how come like it wasn't like this championship, or Kobe and Shaq, and the repeat and this and that. It's like, well, those are all great moments, but that Bucks championship against the Raiders, and like how it was just so like almost like real, like affirming my love for football. It was like, right, it was like solidifying like what became chalk and what I do now, right? It was like I love that game so much, and like how, and the irony of it is like fantasy football is not like I don't play IDP, so like the defensive impact of that game, which was what made it so significant.
Yeah.
I don't play IDP, but yeah, that's kind of what really kicked off this love for football.
I love it. I love it. So outside of sports, what are your favorite hobbies and activities?
Yeah, so I got two girls, so it's kind of cliche, but spending time with my girls, really spending time with them, going to like all their dance practices, going to all their swim lessons, making time for that. That's definitely a hobby of mine, and we spend a lot of time at Disneyland. We do live fairly close. And then outside of that, I do enjoy shooting some hoops, out, at the park. Things like that, right? Just spending time with friends, hanging out with my wife, right? Going to check out places to eat around the area. So yeah, pretty
Sounds
simple
good.
guy.
No, yeah,
Pretty
sounds
simple.
good. No, I can relate to being a girl dad, so I appreciate that a ton. So when did you discover fantasy sports for the first time?
So I played fantasy in college, right? Like, when I was like 21, right? Discovered it with some friends, played it, didn't really care. And I think the first time I actually played it was um, some girl I was dating in college. She was in a sorority, and the sorority was in a fantasy league with like a fraternity. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then my girlfriend at the time was like, "Hey, I'm in this fantasy football thing. Yeah, I know you watch football. Can you help me?" And I was like, "What is this?" I was like, "What is this?" And I ended up helping her. We sucked. It's not some magical story where we like dominated. Like we sucked. Like I didn't know what was going on. I think it was like Braylon Edwards. For some reason, his name sticks out like on my team. Maybe it was like the wrong name, but anyways. So that's
I
when I
love
got
it.
exposed to it. Ended up playing like fantasy basketball with some friends a year later, a couple years later. Was actually pretty successful then, and then played a little bit of fantasy football. Was kind of successful. So I played a little bit when I was like in my young 20s.
Okay.
And then I got burned by a friend. I was in his league. I won. Got burned on the money. Stopped playing for like 15, 20 years.
Wow.
And then just like I would say 5, 6 years ago, through some work friends, we started playing redraft on ESPN, and yeah, and then that's kind of when I got into it. So I've actually only been playing fantasy football again, maybe 6 years, 7 years, 6 years.
Okay. It's funny because so many people are like, yeah, my first league, I won my league and I was hooked. So I like that. I like that story. I played with her and we sucked. That's good. That's funny. But yeah, no, I had the same experience with it's kind of what inspired me to like go all out as a commissioner was that I was in a league once where the commish ran off with the money. And so I like that's what kind of inspired me to be like, hey, I need to just be the commissioner and make this league special because we can't have that. So I saw some of the bad stuff in fantasy too. So I'm glad you came back because you've done some amazing things in this industry. When it comes to just playing the game, like what is it that you love about playing fantasy?
There's two things I really love, right? So, the first thing is the community, right? And it's like everyone talks about the community and stuff. It's like, I'm not saying the fantasy community at large. Like, honestly, like, I think there's really good people like yourself and, Scott and Ryan and what they do with Fantasy Cares and Russ. Obviously like Tommy and Jax, and what we got going on with Undroppables. But it's, I think it's about making it's community with like making actually friends and like having friendships. And yeah, like, I think there's like a bad side to that where it could be like cliquish and, of course, like there's that side of things. But, having that real genuine community with people, right? Like me and you, like, like we met years ago, like when I first came into this industry or community, and we've had our conversations, in emails and in back channels and in DMs and in person, right? Hanging out, right? Sharing stories, and then now hanging out today. But having that genuine like those connections, I think that's something that I really enjoy. And then the second part of about the actual game, at least for me, especially from like a dynasty standpoint, because that's where I'm really at right now. And I do play redraft quite a bit, but dynasty is where I'm at. It's a strategy. The way I play it and the way I view it is it rewards having a strategic mindset. And yeah, there's always going to be luck and variance. Those are two factors of the equation, right? But there's also strategy, skill, and time and effort and knowledge and everything else that goes into it, right? And you can minimize the percentage of luck and variance, right, by being strategic. So I like that. I like that element of I can control some of that. And, just like Vegas, like people go to the poker table. There is luck and variance of what cards you get, but there's also skill and the way you play your hand. And you could still win a hand where your percentages maybe aren't great. And maybe you just know when to fold too. So I like that aspect. With that said, it's I don't play poker and I hate poker. So.
No, that's great. I mean, it's true. The community, like even just a league. I mean, you can consider that a community. You got 12 people, friends, family, or colleagues, or just people that you've met out there. So that's a small community. That's special. That makes league special. And then obviously the strategy, the competition. I like the way that you describe dynasty, and there's just so many different layers to the way you go about attacking it. So I love that. Great answer. Do you have a primary league that's like you consider your main home league?
Over the years, like, changing jobs, like, that group has kind of, spread apart a little bit. But there's two, right? That, one is dynasty, one's a redraft. Like, I would say half of that league or leagues, right? Both, like, it's like the same group, the same six of us, kind of like from that kind of have kept those going. But then the other half of those the other half, kind of a different mix of people who I've built relationships over the last few years in the industry. So
great.
Yeah, so that's kind of what I have. But yeah, I don't really have something that's like local right here.
Yeah, everybody's got a different thing when it comes to like what league matters the most to them. When it comes to like a rivalry, is there one person that you it tastes the sweetest when you beat them, and it hurts the most when you lose to them?
I sort of feel like it's like so many people. that, there's like three people that come to mind, right? And like for different reasons. So Jax, right? And I know he said this the same about me, and so much respect, mutual respect here is, Jax is the person that I'm the most scared to play against, and I actively would be happy to avoid him in a league, like not play him, right? Because I don't want to deal with him,
Yeah.
right? And he says the same thing about me. So Jax, right? So that's kind of a rival in that sense, right? And then BZ, um, BZ's a rival in the sense that um, we just like jabbing each other, and BZ, and these are all kind of undroppables and my business partners. But BZ is one of the guys who we just love jabbing each other, right? So he's like a rival, and like he's just like verbally sparring, and anytime I win, I just kind of rubbing it in. If he wins, I just rub it off. Like I don't, it's like doesn't mean anything, right? So more like that. But then like if it comes to like the rival of like kind of like your pure question of like I hate losing to this guy and I have to defeat him and crush him at all costs, and I hate trading with this guy because like like if I do, I'm gonna juice him and I'll never give him an inch of anything and any value, and I'm gonna squeeze him to the death. Is D-Jack, fantasy D-Jack, deny.
Okay.
And he's my brother. I love him. And we're in like eight or nine leagues together, right? And I hate watching him. When he wins it all, I hate it. And if I'm beating him, I love it, right? And I'm like, like he could be tanking it, right? And I'll play him, and I know he's purposely trying to lose, and I'll still be like talking trash, right? Like just berating him,
That's
So
what it's
I guess
all
like
about.
different levels of rivals, but I do feel like I'm everyone's rival. Every league I play in, 'cause I host a bunch of leagues too, like like yourself, right? Commission leagues, and
Yeah.
I'm sure it's the same with you, right? Like you're the one to target on your back in like every league. It's
Sure.
like everybody's like, oh well, don't trade with Nick. I mean, people still do, but there's less incentive to work a deal with us, right? I'm sure it's the
Yeah,
same.
yeah. That's awesome. That's a great answer. So when it comes to leagues and settings and formats, like what is your favorite way to go? Obviously,
Yeah,
you
so
love
the
Dynasty.
so the chalk standard is Superflex PPR, Dynasty, 1.5 PPR for tight ends, 6-point touchdowns for everybody, um, and that's pretty much it. Oh, 1 point for fumble, and then another point loss for a fumble, another point loss for a fumble lost, right? So if you lose the fumble, it's -2, but if you just drop the ball, it's -1. If you like drop the ball and pick it up,
Yeah.
and then pick six, add another -1, interception -2. So, but very standard. Literally, like no points per carry, no first downs, no bonuses, no video games, no kick returns.
There it is. That's the chalk standard. I love it.
Yeah.
When it comes to creating content, what inspired that? Like talk about your journey diving into creating content in fantasy.
Yeah, so we talked a little bit about kind of like me getting back in and playing with some coworkers, and it's funny because when I first played, like I had no success, but then when I played again with my coworkers, and it was 2016 that first year, so it was like 7 years ago. 2016, the first year I played with my coworkers, I actually won, and I was like super immersed in like the data and like trying to figure out who to pick up and make trades. And then I won, and then I just started consuming a bunch of content. The Ballers, right? And then like, Underworld and, Roto World and RotoViz and all the big dogs. And Harris Football, Fantasy Pros, RIP Mike Tagliere. Um, and then like that kind of inspired me just to like kind of learn more about it, be like a student. And then I think the second year the second year I was trying to repeat. I lost in the playoffs, and I was like really frustrated, and I just wanted to like release like something, but there's nothing to play.
Yeah.
And then I found Dynasty, And then when I found Dynasty, it kind of got me like reading a bunch of content, and I wasn't into content then though. I got exposed to it, and then eventually I played a third year of like fantasy football, first year Dynasty, and then after that year, then that's when I was like, okay, I want to do content. I want to do rankings. I want to write. I want to like put stuff out there. So it was a few years in. It wasn't like, oh, I'm playing and all of a sudden I'm like gonna start writing. But that's kind of where I started, and yeah, and then started just putting work in and decided just to create my own platform. Just kind of do it for myself.
So what inspired the Undroppables, the name and the brand and the culture? Like, describe to me about like what is the Undroppables all about, and how
Yeah,
that began. What was your vision?
yeah. So as I was making my own content and I was on Twitter and making friends, I did realize that, and I did see that a lot of the industry is kind of like you're in or you're out, right? Like you're part of a big brand, you're part of ESPN, you're part of Yahoo, you're part of Dynasty, DLF, or Dynasty Nerds. Like you're part of these groups or you're not. And it's almost like this status thing, like who you roll with and where you ride and where your rankings sit. Like it almost became like this whole thing, and I don't know. Part of me just didn't want to like chase that. Like I don't want to like try to write for all these different people and get in this like rat race. And I wanted, but I wanted a platform, right? So I was like, I'll just make my own blog, right? And I have some experience creating WordPress blogs and doing some branding marketing work, and I have roots in like fashion and streetwear, and I was like, I could just create something myself, like something just goofy, for myself and also for anyone else who kind of needs a home for content, like a platform for like their stuff, like really a blog for their stuff. It wasn't a YouTube. We had a Twitter and a vlog, right? Like post. And like something for just people who don't really want to write for big sites, and maybe they tried, they couldn't get in, or they just don't want to. And that was really the whole purpose. And for me, because I wanted to be edgy, and it was kind of like that chip off your shoulder, right? And coming up with the name, and somehow I just kind of land on this kind of name, the Undroppables, right? And I was like, oh, like we can do like this emoji logo. And I really came with the emoji logo because like I'm not a graphic designer, and it required zero skill and talent to like create a logo, right? And
Yeah.
like it was a font and the sign right there you see on the screen behind you, and it took like 2 seconds to create a logo, and it was a cool name. It was edgy, like undroppables, like undroppable players are what, like the ones you cannot drop, right? Or it throws the balance of the league off. So it's kind of like that, like edgy, right? Like kind of attitude. So that's what we did, right? And I asked my buddies like, hey, let's do this together, right? And it's history, history from
For
there.
sure. For sure. What challenges has there been for you? Obviously starting an independent brand like that.
I mean, it's a bittersweet thing, right? You grow, right? You consistently find this upcoming talent, right? The unknown, unsigned hype, the unknown gems, right? The hidden gems. Scouring Twitter, right? Reaching out, putting yourself out there. Hey, I have a platform. Would love for you to join, do whatever you want, give you a platform to grow. Or I see you trying to make moves or trying to get your voice out there, and would love to give you a place. And seeing them flourish and thrive, I love that, right? I mean, that's what it's about. It really is, right? That's what it's about. And
Yeah, I mean, you've done an incredible job just facilitating, others and putting other people out
that's what
there.
it's about, man. That's what it's
Yeah,
about, man. Like honestly, like I take so much more joy watching that, because for me, like I don't know, like I'm more happy to watch that because I don't really want to do that. I mean, that's why I didn't chase those dreams. Like I decided to build something for somebody else, basically. But seeing them blow up and get poached, right, or signed to like
yeah,
paid gigs, right, like full time gigs, or like sweet gigs. Like shout out to Adam Hutchison, right? I mean, Edwin Porras, and like, Blake Hampton, and the list goes on of like people who've rose the ranks and have gotten nice jobs and deals and made big time moves and blown up. And it's bittersweet, right? Like to see that, and then to also like kind of lose them over time and trying to replace that, like, dude, the elite talent, right? You lost AJ Brown. Like, how do you replace that, right? Like, how do you replace Patrick Mahomes? Like you can't. Like you just keep going, right? You just rebuild, right? You just keep going. So that's the biggest challenge, but it's also like I wouldn't have it any other way. Like, right? I wholeheartedly accept that challenge and I, embrace it.
That's great. Now it's like you're like a point guard, on the court, distributing, but you're also kind of like a GM of the Undroppables. The way that you create a dynasty league of content creators, and then do everything you can to help them. It's cool to see. Definitely something that is clear. If you pay attention at all, the way that you help inspire people and get people those platforms to grow in the industry. So definitely excited for everything you've done in the past and in the future. You obviously love the underdog spirit. What about that appeals to you?
I don't know. I just feel like I've always been an underdog. I've always Asian American, right? Growing up in a predominantly white community in a neighborhood. Being the shortest kid, right, on the basketball team or on the playground, right, being picked last. Just kind of having that underdog no matter where I was kind of at, like, as a child growing up, always felt like, I'm being overlooked, kind of having like always have a chip on my shoulder. And I'm always like using it in a good way to like almost like stay humble, right? Like it's almost like you're an underdog because like that's the reality of it too, right? Like there is some reality in being the underdog, right? It's like, yeah, you're not as good, right? That's why you're the underdog. I mean, if you were as good, you wouldn't be the underdog. But doesn't mean you can't win or you can't overcome, right? And like that's the beauty of it, right? It's like, yeah, I know who I am. Like I have self-realization, but then I also know that that's not the limit. Unlimited, right? Like, dude, FF Unlimited, man. Like, that's not the limit. Like I know who I am, but that's not the limit. Right? Yeah. So yeah, so I mean that's kind of what pushes me, and I enjoy that.
Yeah, that's pretty cool to turn that, turn those feelings and those experiences into something positive, which you clearly do. What do you enjoy most about what you're doing with the Undroppables in the industry?
Yeah, so I think it's watching, a lot of my, my colleagues and my teammates, my partners have success, right? So, watching Tommy, do stuff with like his photo and his film and his video work, and that's something that kind of a creative outlet and a passion that he's cultivated, and watching Jax, and his podcast blow up, watching Dan, and Rhinos in the fishbowl right now blowing up and going to the quarters, and moving on to the playoffs, or, seeing Ashley and Michael Duncan doing their podcast and growing it, their show, Playbook, and I can go, list goes on, right? Like Josh and Chosen doing, their analytics project, Fair Analytics, and the success they've had, with the Undroppables Bets program and the best ball. And like I said, I can just go on and on with like who's doing what, and right, but like the whole team's killing it, right? And like that's what I'm so proud of, and I'm so excited about right now is watching everybody kind of doing their project or what they want, making it their own, and just having fun with it, and doing a great job, right? So yeah, I mean, that's something that I truly appreciate, and to that point, and kind of tying it back to some of the people that have come and gone, Mike Reedy, right, who has moved on to Fantrax recently, the OG first Undroppable, but watching him grow and right, like keeping that connection and seeing that happen. But yeah, so I think all that kind of puts a bow on it, right? Like seeing the success of people, keeping in contact, watching them grow, watching them kind of rise through the ranks. Reedy's like, I mean, he's an established made man. He don't need this, right? But he did it for the fun of it and the love of it, and getting to ride with him, right? Like that's another thing that I could probably hang my hat on, just to say that something that I really enjoyed doing.
That's awesome. So for people that are, wanting to dive into Dynasty more and get into this off season, what does the Undroppables have in place for Dynasty content and fantasy content during the off season? Obviously, off season is coming.
Yeah, so we got our dynasty rankings updated year round. We try to update it weekly, if not like every couple weeks. I mean, definitely every month it's being updated. So we have our consensus dynasty rankings. We have the slew of dynasty articles that are posted throughout the off season. I have the Art of Dynasty. I don't know what it's called. It's like an ebook, I guess, or a series of articles or kind of thoughts, right? I think like we're in article chapter 15 now, and that's on the Undroppables site. You can check us out, theundroppables.com, and look up the Art of Dynasty, and really just a guide to getting, how I approach Dynasty, right? From a like kind of topical, approach, touching on different things, and from trading to startup drafts to how to handle rookie drafts or roster management, evaluating players, all of that. So I covered that, and I'm trying to add to it as we go, right? As I learn more, right? And then as I learn, going back, revising the chapters, right? So even if you read chapter 3 before, which is on whatever, I may have revised it, based on some of the things I'm seeing in the market or some of the things that happen to me, or I'm adjusting, right? Because it's an art, right? And it's an art form, right? Which means it's constantly evolving and adapting and changing. And it's all about the strategy, right? Or the strategery, as you would say.
There you go. I love it. That's good. So back to like the community, obviously, there's been events, like this, talk to me about the Scott Fish Bowl live event in California. What was that like for you to go to those? What did you get the most out of those?
Yeah, first of all, shout out to, Matt Walsh, Trophy Smack, for hosting that, 2 years in a row now. They do a fantastic job. So, Kelly, much love to her as well. So, big shout out to them. And they're one of our partners here at Undroppables, so I have to shout them out. Almost obligatory.
Sure.
But it's 2 years now being able to kind of be a part of that team with Scott, with Matt, with Kelly, helping host and commission those leagues. The event is so great, man. I mean, seeing you fly out, I mean, flying across the pond just for that. I mean, not just for the event, but flying out for that. Seeing Troy and Laquan, Laquan lives out here now, but Tommy was there, of course, and just like you got Ratcliffe there. You just had like all the celebs. Just a star-studded affair every year. And it's always a good time, right? And I think that really sums up what the community now is about. What Scott has really built. Going back to what I said about community, like that's what it is, right? Like hanging out, Sam Holt and like you and the crew and Troy and that little area that kept jabbing you guys, like you guys got the VIP suite, I'm here in the back on these like fold out tables, but yeah, I mean it's just so much fun, man. And I do think LA puts out the best party, so hopefully see you there next year.
Yeah, I certainly didn't want to miss it this last year, and it's definitely the leading candidate when it comes to where I want to be next year. Because I just love the people down there, getting to meet such a great mix of people, and obviously the way that Trophy Smack puts it together is amazing. But seriously, knowing you're down there, I just think I couldn't miss it, and I definitely want to get back down there. So obviously, also when it comes to Scott Fish Bowl, there's fantasy cares, and it's hard not to notice. You helping out with sleeper leagues, and I'm in the sleeper league, and you'll pop up, start communicating. I'm like, what's going on here? How did you get involved with Fantasy Cares? And where's that passion to contribute into the community that way come from?
Yeah, everything I do, relate to fantasy is like it's because I enjoy it, right? And being able to build a relationship with Scott, it's been a blessing. And I've been a big user of Sleeper for a while now. I think I've been, one of the power users, right? I mean, I think I'm in the kind of top class of power users, or time spent. Not power users, but time spent on the app. I mean, nothing to probably boast about. But Scott had a lot of questions about Sleeper over the years, and we've talked, and he knew how much like I commissioned and what I did, and said, in back channels, back conversations, hey, we should work together, and I would love to bring you on to help with some stuff. The conversation kind of was ongoing for a little bit. And I just kept reminding Scott, hey, I'm here, whenever you want, like, I'm here to help. And, last year, kind of needed some help, doing some Sleeper stuff for Fishbowl for the first time. And, I told him I'd help with that. And then we did the satellites on Sleeper, so I helped with that, right? So we had a few leagues, and we did satellites. And then Des Bryant and Scott collaborated on some charity leagues. I think it's like 50 leagues, and we did that on Sleeper as well. So it was kind of like helping Scott with that, right? And kind of helping commission set up, right? Just boom, 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 put on spreadsheets that he would set up, me filling stuff out. And he made it so easy to work with. He's just so easy to work with, right? I mean, from a person standpoint, but then from like a professional, like admin, logistics standpoint too. Like, he's just one of those people like you just want to work with. So we did that. Stayed in contact, had some good conversations. I went through a kind of a rough patch personally over the off season, and me and Scott stayed in touch, and then got through that, reconnected as this season kicked off, and and then brought me on for Sleeper this year for the Fishbowl. Me and Justin Peak actually kind of tag team Sleeper, so big shout out to him. Can't say I'm doing it by myself. Justin has done a tremendous job. And yeah, so we've been kind of knocking out, managing all those, and then all the kind of satellite stuff on Sleeper as well. So it's been fun. It's been a lot, right? So, and then got the honor to do some shopping for Toys for Tots.
Yeah.
Invited Tommy to come along. Really, because I told Tommy, I was jabbing him that I want him to do the videos and pictures. And but talk, we met up with their local kind of Marine Corps, and
cool.
So it's cool.
That's awesome. So what would you say to people that want to get more involved with Fantasy Cares?
Yeah, I mean, reach out to Scott, reach out to Russ, Dynasty Outhouse. And reach out to Ryan McDowell. But I would probably say reach out to Russ, Bob Gilchrist as well. Those are the people that we want to reach out to. Of course, Scott, right? Scott, honestly, Scott gets like he feels so bad because he can't get to everybody. He'll miss people's DMs and he feels tremendously bad. Don't take it personally, but reach out to Russ. Reach out to myself. I mean, I can't make any decisions, but I'm happy to pass along the message to people, right? I'm happy to do that. Again, Ryan, Scott, I mean, you can. I mean, I'll say with this, right? Like, if you email the CEO of Target or Coca-Cola, you email Elon Musk, are you going to reply? Like, I mean, I'm not saying, like, Scott and Ryan are that, or they think they're that. I'm not saying that, but, like, but if you reach out to, like, the manager of PR or marketing, will you get a response? Probably, right? Better chance. So, reach out to, like, guys like that, that I think will be able to help you communicate. So Bob, Russ, good places to start.
It's certainly cool to see like how much Fantasy Cares has ramped up. So much exciting things ahead for 2024, I'm sure. But obviously 2023 is not over yet. And when it comes to real football, this season is flying by. It's fantasy playoff season. Do you have some players like, maybe a quarterback, a running back, a wide receiver, a tight end that you think are going to be most rostered on fantasy championship teams?
Mostert.
Raheem
Mostert. I think, I don't think many teams will have Austin Eckler. That's for sure. Yeah, I mean, I think people who've like lucked into like a Kyron Williams, Puka Nacua, right? I mean, I think they're gonna have good shots. Brock Purdy, right? You should listen to me a long time ago and stash Brock Purdy and got him on your teams. I did write about him in the Roto Underworld world famous draft kit. So
nice.
Go back and read those receipts. But I think those are some names that if you have those guys on your team, you're probably doing pretty well going into the playoffs.
How about tight end?
Tight end. McBride. McBride's a big one, right? I mean, if you have McBride, I mean, you're sitting pretty. Kelsey, of course, right? But Kelsey had a huge opportunity cost there, right? But McBride, I mean, that was probably a big steal. Njoku coming on late here.
Yeah.
Looking real good.
Yeah, I think the key theme there is value. You got to hit those values at some point during the season, whether it's draft or on the waiver wire to get those league winners, right? So exciting times though. I love championship season. It's nice when it all kind of finishes too. It's nice to have a little breather after fantasy unwinds. But as for the NFL, like, who do you think comes out of the NFC and the AFC and meets in the Super Bowl, and who do you have for a winner this time?
I like the Ravens and I like the Niners, so I kind of see like a Super Bowl repeat a bit. I think it's the Niners' year, man. I just think so. They just seem like a team on a mission. They're a complete team, right? I mean, every team has some holes, right? They're not like the perfect team, but like they're a complete team on both sides of the ball, and they can keep the ball out of your hands, and then when the ball is in your hands, they can like shut you down too, right? So, I think it is the Niners' year this year.
That's cool. It's funny because Niners and Ravens got a matchup here during the season, so that might be a preview to the Super Bowl. So looking forward to that to see kind of how those teams match up.
Yeah, no, that's I totally forgot about that. We are gonna get a preview of what potentially might be Super Bowl here.
We'll see. But obviously, as your journey in the fantasy industry continues, I'm sure there's been a ton of people that you would credit to your success and just have had a massive impact on you. Can you name a few people that just stand out when it comes to those that have just really impacted you along the way?
Yeah, like honestly, man, like it's a lot of like the guys I grew up in the game with, right? So and it's like I keep kind of naming off the same names, but it's like because they made such an impact, right? So, Jax, Beezy, D-Jack. I mean, like my rivals have like kind of helped kind of create who I am, right? Like you've created the beast in me. Paulie, right? Paulie Sleepers, right? I mean, he's retired from the game, but like, he's made a huge impact on like, just me as a fantasy analyst or a person who does this type of stuff. Like Scott, right? Just the stuff that he's done in the community it just kind of inspired me. Ryan McDowell and kind of his productive struggle and kind of when I first started looking at dynasty content, he was the first person I actually really followed and was really honing after. And then like from like the really smart, really brain guys like the JJ Zachariasons, the Matt Harmons, the Sean Siegels, the Ben Gretches, Curtis Patrick, right? I'm just ragey. Like I feel so bad if I don't shout you out, but like if I'm following you on Twitter, I don't follow many. Probably credit you there, right? So like the 250 something people I follow, those people.
Yeah, it's a pretty sweet list for sure.
All equally, played a tremendous part in who I am and what I do.
That's awesome. Do you have any advice for people that want to get more involved in fantasy and creating content?
It's just stay positive and like don't compare yourself, like who cares what someone else is doing, right? Like I think when you get caught up in that, I think it's the first thing. Just like and find what you want to do and really like check yourself on like, do you really want to do it? Like we all want to do stuff and it's easy to just create a Twitter account and start posting stuff, but like, can you do it for like 5 years? Can you do it for 4 years? Can you do it for like X amount of years and like not make a dime and put in the time doing it and rinse and repeat every year, and still love it, then do it, But if you're trying to do it to like make money and get known and have 20,000 followers and do this. Like, that's the wrong reasons. But if you have the right reasons and you want to do it, reach out to people, man. Like, reach out to me, right? You want to write for Undroppables, write for Undroppables, right? Put stuff out there. Like, create your own blog, right? And just continue to be out there, like, talk to people. And you know what it is, too? It's, as you kind of jump in like your timeline, you see conversations happening. What I did, and I know you did the same, is like you kind of like jump into conversations with like value add to the conversation. You're not like trying to troll or just say something to be like stupid. Like, you're actually like trying to engage, or sometimes you have a counterpoint, or sometimes you're gonna agree but then add a point, right? But you're not just like saying yes, me too, but you're like adding some insight, right? I think if you do that consistently with like genuine intentions, you start to kind of build those relationships, right? So like, I think it's those things, right? It's time, effort, humility, ingenuity. Like, are you genuine about it and like having these interactions? Are you reaching out, right? Which reminds me, like, if you're listening, Justin, if you're listening, I know we went back and forth about writing for the site. I do want you to write, it's like stuff like that. Like,
yeah.
I didn't forget you, man. I just got, things happen, and, but reach out. Like, he reached out to me on Twitter, and he reached out to me on the Undroppables contact form, right? So, reach out, and put yourself out there and try, right? And keep trying.
It's great advice. That's perfect. For that question, for sure. What is one thing you're just truly grateful for at this time?
I'm grateful for the relationships that have allowed me to kind of have the platform reach that I have like right now, right? Being able to talk to you and to be able to like kind of spread what we're doing, and what we're doing at the Undroppables, and some of the stuff that people have the success people have had. I think that's what I'm most thankful for. And then the success that we've had. I mean, we're not that successful, but I think we're okay, right? Like, we're still around, right? Like, the account's still here. We haven't been canceled yet.
I love it. Well, Chuck, is there anything that we haven't covered that you'd like to share before we close things out?
No, man. Again, like, so thankful to have the opportunity to speak with you, hang out. Please check us out, undroppables.com, and like, really check out what the team is doing. Derek, he does all this stuff on the website, writing the blog for the most part, and just check out the work that the team's putting out. Please check out the YouTube. Abe, he's doing great work with the YouTube, and doing his podcast with Marcus. So I mean, just check out the team, check us out, that's all I would say.
That's it. Where can they find you on social media?
Yeah, so you can find me at 101 Chalk on Twitter, and of course you can find me at the Undroppables and theundroppables.com. And then occasionally you can find me on The Undrafted, which is Jax's podcast, whenever he lets me sneak on.
Well, there it is. Well, thank you so much for joining me, Chalk, on this episode. It was an absolute pleasure. Can't wait to see what's up for you next, my friend.
Thanks, man. Thanks. Hope you have a happy holidays. We'll reconnect here in the new year.
Sounds like a plan.
Thank you for listening to the Fantasy Football Unlimited podcast. Until next time, be sure to follow and subscribe to all of FFU's social media accounts for daily content.